Hello one and all, it's View Doc Stone, chapter 171, Staring at the Same Light, which is an interesting title, given that last week was called Staring Up at the Same Moon. I mean, these things usually come in threes. Will next week be called Staring into the Abyss Together, or something like that? I'm not sure, maybe. Anyway, before I get into any of the Senko and Xeno stuff, and oh, believe me, I have a lot to say about that, I really just need to take a minute to talk about the first page, because oh my god, this is something people have been asking for basically since Luna first showed up. Luna and Kohaku side by side, and oh, Luna. She looks worried. She looks very worried about this beautiful Amazonian warrior goddess who is very good friends with her boyfriend, whose devotion in her she's starting to question. So, it's going to be very interesting to see what Luna does moving forward. I feel like she's going to, keep trying to one-up Kohaku again and again, keep failing at it every time, and eventually it'll just lead to Kohaku saving her life and then becoming friends and bonding. Maybe Luna learns some basic combat and self-defense from Kohaku, and Kohaku learns some more about the modern world from Luna. I'd really like to see that. And Kohaku definitely does not seem against becoming friends with Luna. I mean, she looks perfectly fine and confident as she's standing right next to her here, and I just absolutely love it, because, Kohaku, she is not the jealous type, and she knows there is no reason to be jealous. I mean, seriously. Senku married her freaking sister just to get the alcohol to save her life. So she is perfectly well aware of the fact that if Senku got himself a girlfriend, it was only for the sake of the mission and nothing else. And plus, there's also the fact that Luna saved Senku's life. And even though Luna was kind of responsible for getting Senku's shot, Kohaku is still probably very grateful to her for everything she did to save his life. So it's going to be very interesting to see how these two advance moving forward. And I just love that the author decided to devote the first page just to showing these two together, because the fans have been wanting it for so long. Anyway, then we flash over to Xeno and Senko, and they open differently than I expected here. I thought, it would be Xeno giving some knowledge about what he knows about the moon base, the Y-Man, all that. Instead, it starts off with Senku playing Byakuya's recording to him. And he definitely seems hurt, a little upset, a little sad the astronauts are dead. I mean, sure, he probably didn't think they had all that much chance of surviving, given they were in the space shuttle, and even if they were petrified, they, crashed into the Earth. Probably not a whole lot left of them, but he was still holding on to that last little bit of hope that maybe somehow they'd find their way back to him. I mean, they were, in a sense, maybe not as friends, but as close as someone like Xeno can get to having friends, besides Stanley. I especially love what he says about Byakuya, though. That man embodied both sentiment and rationality. He was a walking paradox, and he did it with a smile. We never did understand one another. Yet delivering data to the future through a record and oral tales is just the sort of thing he'd do. And this shot of, oh my god, Byakuya touching Xeno and Senku, bringing them together like this, it's so utterly perfect, and I freaking love it. Somehow Byakuya still managed to be like one of my favorite characters, even though he's been dead for thousands of years. Also, I'm just gonna throw out a crazy conspiracy theory right here, because why not? When he's talking about the astronauts, he says Connie, Lillian, and Byakuya, but he refers the other three as the Russians. I mean, surely he must have known their name. He knew Lillian's name. Sure, she's an international pop icon, but I can't imagine he was all that into pop music. Though I would absolutely love it if he was a big fan of Lillian. Oh, that'd be funny. But yeah, so doesn't name the Russians, doesn't seem to know anything about them. That's weird. I mean, yeah, so crazy conspiracy time. Is it possible that the Russians were aware of the Y-Man? They knew this was coming? And maybe they're still alive somehow? If I remember correctly, they just kind of disappeared one day when they went to go get medicine. They went to the mainland in the boat and they never came back. So is it possible they didn't actually, die in the boat, but rather reconnected with the Y-Man cult and then went to their secret moon colony somehow, some way? I mean, very, very unlikely, but it just seems weird that Xeno didn't actually say their names. Also, I should point out that Shamil was also Russian, but he died, so I'm not including him, just the other two. I don't know, like I said, crazy theory, but my crazy theories happened right before, so anyway, yeah, so Byakuya's message is enough to inspire Senku and Xeno. They're all pumped up, they're all ready to start doing the serious science, and Chrome is so excited, like, oh wow, they're gonna be real scientists here. I'm so excited to see this. And he walks in and they're blowing bubbles. Oh my freaking god. I literally had to put my iPad down when I was reading this chapter and laugh for like 5 straight minutes when I saw this. say at this point, I can safely say I no longer consider Xeno to be a villain. Yes, there's probably a good chance he's planning on betraying Senku. Yes, he's almost certainly already figured out a way to get the coordinates over to Stanley so that they can track him down. But after this, I can't see him as a villain anymore. I just can't. It's like when Tsukasa reunited with his sister, that whole tearful reunion, the hug. It was like, alright, Tsukasa's a good guy now. Same thing here. Xeno making bubbles with the metal claws on his fingers have now turned him into a good guy, and there's no going back in my opinion. Of course, Chrome is very, very confused about why they're playing with bubbles and why Xeno isn't tied up, but I guess there isn't really a whole lot of need to tie him up, given, where is he gonna go? He's literally on a ship in the middle of the ocean with 5 of the strongest people on the planet. If he did anything crazy or stupid to try to free himself, try to take over the ship, they would beat him up, and he is way too rational to get beat up for no good reason. Also just love that Robo Senku came back to explain to kids at home how to make super soap bubbles. Oh, that was just such a great touch in this chapter. Anyway, so they've blown bubbles to try and figure out more about the petrification beam and how it worked, and I do just love the shade that Senku throws here about how Xeno is starting to lose his edge if he needs a visual aid. Wow! And Chrome just realizes that Xeno is all about, the style with his giant castle, which was way more elaborate and visually stunning than it needed to be to serve its purpose. Anyway, thanks to the model, they're able to realize something that I've never actually considered, but really should have. If the beam had actually, been able to pass through any material, then it should have passed through the surface of the Earth and petrified Senku from the feet up, which I feel like would be way more terrifying. But that's not what happens. And Chrome's wondering maybe it just passed too slowly through the Earth, like somehow that managed to slow down the process, but just made me wonder. Imagine the Petri beam really couldn't pass through walls or anything. So you were only petrified if you were outside, your windows were open. Oh, especially if it happened during quarantine. Only like 5% of the planet would have been petrified. That would have been really, really funny. Anyway, big problem with Chrome's theory is he's relying on intuition, and that's not science. Every science class and every science YouTuber I've ever seen have made it very abundant. You can't just go in with your gut and intuition and try to make the facts fit around it. You need first to find some way to prove it, find some actual way to test it and confirm it. And then we get talking about Ghost, which, okay. Honestly, I'm not sure which part of this page I love more. The absolute I don't give a care expression on Xeno's face, or the fact that Senku and Xeno would use ghosts to power generators. Oh my god, they are awful, and at the same time, they are like the same person. I love it. Anyway, thanks to them being able to compare notes, they realized that the beam hit them 15 minutes apart, which, that's interesting. That really adds a whole new layer to, the whole world being petrified. I just imagine a guy in Japan texting his girlfriend, like, that's weird. She usually texts me back. Wonder what's going on with it. Oh my god, what is that? Oh, that just amuses me. I mean, it's not like there's a whole lot they could have done if, let's say you were in, like, Eastern Europe, so 30, 40 minutes from the start of the petrification, you're, like, realizing slowly but surely, that's weird. All the other countries are going blacking out one at a time. Wonder what's going on with this. By the time they actually, got anyone on the phone, the general, the president, whatever, to figure out what was happening, the Petra beam would be basically right at your back door and would turn you to stone. Though it is somewhat possible that somehow, some way, because of that delay, there was an ability for someone in Europe or Russia to get into, like, underground bunkers and somehow manage to weather out the Petra beam. I mean, it's unlikely, but maybe? Anyway, big revelation from this, at least right now, is that the wave wasn't light, as light is way faster than that, and it's more of a luminous substance dragged down by the Earth's gravity. It's like a big bomb going off in South America, and then it just kind of fell along with the Earth's gravity to the other side. I mean, that would actually make a certain amount of sense with what Chrome said earlier, how it passed more slowly through the Earth's surface. Because if it is actually affected by gravity like that, then that would mean, by the time it got to the Earth's core, more or less, or near it, the gravity would probably be so intense it sucked whatever this substance is into it and wouldn't let it go, or just slow it down enough that the beam going across the surface hit before the beam going through the surface hit. And we get to this amazing shot of Senku, talking back and forth, and Chrome actually looks a little jealous here. I mean, he's happy for Senku finally being able to talk to someone who is essentially his equal, but at the same time, He just, looks like he wishes he was a better scientist so that he could actually fully understand this conversation and be part of it and talk to Senku the way Xeno is. Talk to Senku in a way that makes him as happy as Xeno is making him right here. Though I should also point out that at no point in this chapter does the light return to Xeno's eyes. That's concerning. I mean, the light was always a sign of, his goodness, the part of him that Senku brought out, but if it's not here, that could actually mean that he is still plotting and planning and going to betray him down the road. I'm curious about that. Anyway, then Kohaku decides to bring up snacks for the boys while they're in their big, important science meeting. And she isn't quite sure what she's seeing as they're building models and playing with bubbles, so she just kind of walks away. Anyway, then they confirm that the beam is moving at a constant speed when it hit both of them. And I just love that both Xeno and Senku look proud of Chrome for figuring that out. I mean, he has no idea what's happening the whole next step, but I mean, at least right here, he shined a little bit. Though, a constant speed, that feels very weird. It definitely doesn't seem like that should be the case. I don't know, I just feel like there's so many factors that should be affecting it. I mean, one of the theories I have heard in the past is that the wave was made up of nanobots, so maybe they were programmed to go at consistent speed for whatever reason. I mean, if that isn't properly explained down the road, it might just be the case that they went with a consistent speed to make the calculations easier to do. Yes, believe me, this whole mass of insanity that is the next panel is the simplified calculations. I'm not particularly good at physics, but I know enough about it to say that if the speed had changed between America and Japan, that would be a whole nother step in these calculations. Anyway, big summary from the whole page is that the light was moving at 32,000 kilometers per hour. Or 30 times the speed of sound. That's fast. That is really, really fast. I mean, nowhere near how fast light would travel, as Xeno already figured out earlier on, but it's still interesting. Anyway, thankfully, because Senku and Xeno were in two separate locations when the beam hit, and they have a fairly decent idea of what angle the beam came from, they're able to combine what they know, they're able to do the calculations with each other, and figure out roughly the exact GPS coordinates of where the beam originated from, and I just freaking love this. I mean, I said last week, I was hoping it wouldn't just be, Xeno filling in the blanks about what Senku didn't know, but them working together, and this was absolutely that. Them working together, them giving both their different perspectives and viewpoints, quite literally, to figure out the exact coordinates, to figure out exactly where this all started from. I just absolutely love that their thinking poses are so alike, just really showing, they are master and student. So alike and at the same time so different. Oh, and if you're wondering, this is my thinking pose. Most of the editing I do for these videos is just me cutting out long pauses where I'm making that face and staring into oblivion. Anyway, big conclusion of the chapter is that the Petri beam originated from 3.7 south latitude by 60.1 west longitude. Then I decided to go the extra step with this video, so actually MapQuest the coordinates. Seems to be a town in Brazil, but the important part here is that it's on a river, I believe the Amazon River, so they don't have to trek through miles and miles of jungle. They can literally just sail the boat right to it. The only problem is they're on the west side of South America, and it looks like you can only get to the Amazon River from the east side of South America. A little problematic. I mean, there is the Panama Canal, but that's a man-made river, throughway, whatever you want to call it, so I'm not really sure if it would still be, up and functional 3,000 years later. Certainly could have broken down over time, and so maybe it's blocked or clogged now. I mean, that'd certainly be something, it was still working 3,000 years later. A real sign of humanity's achievements and progress. I think it actually would be very interesting if it's open enough where Senku can get the yacht through it and they can manage to get to the other side of South America to get into the Amazon to find the source of Petri beam. But Stanley and the gang can't fit through it on the Perseus, so they have to go all the way around South America and come up the other end in order to catch up with Senku. Like I said before, I'm 100% certain that Xeno has already figured out a way to get the coordinates of them. I'm not sure how, but I'm sure he's thought of something. So yeah, next stop, Panama Canal, and after that, Brazil, I guess. I'm not sure how long this is going to take. I mean, I feel like it'd be, at least a week, maybe 2, maybe 3, in order to get, down Mexico, through the Panama Canal, across the top of South America, through the Amazon, into the center of Brazil, more or less. The trip to America took, 5, 6 chapters, I think? You can certainly see them spending at least 2 or 3 chapters just on the trip there. And we all want to see what's there, if there's anything even left. Petrobeam, giant Petrobeam, some secret underground lab. I mean, what's there after 3,000 years? I'm very, very curious about all of that. So yeah, those are my thoughts on the chapter. Love seeing Senko and Xeno working together, Chrome getting involved too. I'm hoping he learns a lot from Xeno and becomes an even better scientist because of it. Xeno, like I said, after the bubble thing, I can't really imagine him being a villain anymore, but there was no light in his eyes this chapter. It was there when he saw Senko again, but this chapter, when he was actually doing all the science they loved, it just didn't come back, which definitely concerning. Like I said, I think he's going to find a way to get a message to Stanley so they can better track him. Maybe there's a tracking device in his shoe or something. I could definitely see that being the case. Seems like the kind of thing Xeno would plan out ahead of time. Luna and Kohaku, I'm excited to see what happens to them moving forward. Like I said, I think Luna is going to try and compete with Kohaku, fail again and again, and over time they're going to be becoming friends. Kohaku definitely does not look jealous, and I can't really imagine her becoming jealous, but maybe just a little annoyed when Luna's flirting with Senku. That could definitely be fun to say, but yeah. Let me think all this down below. What do you think is waiting for them in South America? Do you think the Panama Canal is still up and running? What exactly does Xeno have planned now? And do you still think he's going to go back to being a villain when Stanley and the rest of them reunite with him? Also, what's going on with Jinro right now? He was captured, he's aboard the enemy ship. I feel like he's going to do something somehow to incapacitate them, to knock them out, to beat them. And, that'll just earn him way more respect and admiration from Matsukaze, which I would love. Heck, it might even earn him Luna. Jinro and Luna feel like they'd be a very interesting couple, and I'd love to see that. Let me do all this down below. Be sure to like, subscribe to this video. Until then,
peace!